Welcome to Granny's Country Cookin', and I am Granny, and I am so glad you're here with us today. And today our show is going to be about cinnamon rolls. Oh, I love cinnamon rolls. And I've had so many people asking me to make this video, and we're just now getting to it. We've had so many other things we needed to do. So we're getting our basic supplies out to make cinnamon rolls. Now, what you're going to need is, I like Fleischmann's Active Dry Yeast. Do not use the Rapid Rise yeast. I like the regular Active Dry. Now, we're going to use the yeast today. Then we're going to use water. We'll get the measurements in a minute. We're going to use sea salt, flour, butter Crisco, and then we're going to mix it all up. And let me see, there is salt, there's a little bit of sugar that's going to go in this too. So we are going to have cinnamon rolls out of this world. I know there's 100 kinds of cinnamon rolls, but I think once you see these, you're going to want to make these, and I hope you really like them. So let's get started. What you're going to do is put yeast into a basic bowl. It can be any kind of bowl. Now we're going to use one package. I use the larger jars because I use so much yeast. So one package on the jar, it says equals to 2 1/4 teaspoon of this powdered yeast. So either one package or 2 1/4 teaspoons. You want to make it even. This is a 1 teaspoon measurement. We need 2 1/4. So we're going to get the second one. We're going to put it in the bowl. Then we're going to get the fourth. The fourth is the smallest one. 2 1/4 equals, or one package of yeast. Now we're going to get that level. We're going to pour it in here. Now what we're going to do is pour in 2 cups of water, but do not stir for 5 minutes, and we will set the timer. Now this is warm water, and people will say how warm or how cold, and it does make a difference. And if any of you have been mothers before, you want it about the temperature that you would have your formula or your milk heated up to, or you can heat your water on the stove or in a microwave, and you put your finger in. And if it's just a gentle warm, not a burn warm, that's what you want. Okay, we're going to pour it in on top, but don't stir. I have read many recipes. I have been trained by many people to make homemade breads. And this is a very important step where you pour it in. It's called proofing the yeast. That means you're checking to see if the yeast is going to actually rise before you add all the other ingredients, because you'll just ruin the whole recipe if the yeast isn't going to be any good. So we are going to pause for a break and time this for 5 minutes, and be right back to you. Thank you. Hey, we are back. Now this has been sitting for 5 minutes with the warm water. Now we can start adding our sugar and our shortening to it. Now some cinnamon rolls will have butter, or they will have oil added to it, but this is going to be shortening, and it's out of this world. Now the first thing we're going to add is 1/2 cup of sugar. It's the regular white granulated sugar. So we're going to add 1/2 of a cup. I have my little recipe over here, so I'm wanting to make sure. We're going to put 2 teaspoons of salt. Now, I like to use my little vintage glass, but this is sea salt. We are going to use, this is a 1 teaspoon. We're going to put 2 in. This is going to be 2 teaspoons of salt. There is 2 teaspoons. Okay. Now we're going to stir this up. I'm going to use a whisk, and this way it gets it all mixed up, all stirred up. What we're wanting to do is get the sugar and the salt stirred in very good. Then we're going to add the shortening. Now, one of the funny things about this recipe is when you add the shortening, it looks very, very weird because it's all lumps of yellow shortening. But I promise it will work out and be delicious. So now we're getting this all stirred. Okay, we're going to get this moved out of the way, and we are going to measure our ½ cup of shortening, and I like to use the butter Crisco. Now, I learned a little secret. Put water in your measuring cup, pour the water out, and then put your shortening into the cup, and it makes it come out a lot easier. It's a lot cleaner cup. You get all of the shortening out that you need. We need ½ cup of shortening, and I love the butter Crisco. It gives it such a creamy taste and a buttery flavor, but it's not real strong. Now, shortening has always been kind of a messy thing for me, so that's why we wear aprons. That's why we always have clean hands. Now, use your knife, kind of a flat, rounded knife, and you take it, you kind of mash it down in there. I used to get this all the way up to my elbows, but I'm doing a little bit better now. And you want to get it a nice, flat, straight across. Now you take your knife, and you slide it in, go around the edge, and because of the water, it comes out very easily. Now we're going to get this scraped off for the whisk. Now this is the weird part because it doesn't mash in very well. It looks really ucky, I guess you could say. Now I'll tell you a little story while I'm mixing this up. I was probably about 11 or 12 years old, and my mother and I went to a little older German lady's house, and my mother asked her if she could teach us to make her cinnamon rolls, and this is the recipe. Absolutely magnificent cinnamon rolls. Now this lumpy shortening is going to be weird looking, as it still is right now. It's all lumpy and it is a mess, but I promise you it works out. And I remember sitting in that little older lady's house, and her home at that time was around 100 years old, her house itself. Unbelievable, wonderful woman. Now we're going to put in 2 cups of flour at first. Now I always like to use a sifter. I set it on a little vintage saucer, and that way I've found out through the years that sometimes flour will have little maybe humidity lumps in there or something that are kind of hard. That way you can get rid of all the lumps and it won't go into your food. We are going to put in 2 cups at first. Now clean hands, and you're going to dip this, kind of scoop it in the flour. You're going to put it in the sifter. We're going to get 2 for right now. We are going to add more flour, but there's something about humidity and weather that makes a difference in measuring flour in yeast bread. That's what is so unusual. Sometimes you need a little more, or sometimes you need a little bit less. Now you want to sift this into your bowl with your goopy shortening, and you stir it around, and as you can tell, I've got some lumps, so gently push the little lumps in and get all the lumps out gently. Now if there is a lump that will not gently push through, then you want to throw that one away. Okay, I have all of them in there. going to stir this up and mix it, and it still looks like a goopy mess. So please don't worry, when you get to this point, don't think this is the biggest mess you've ever seen, because it's not. It'll turn out to be absolutely beautiful cinnamon rolls. And you are getting firsthand to see how it starts out with the yeast and the water and the salt and the sugar and some shortening and a little bit of flour to start off. Now the reason why I didn't put a ton of flour in at first is because you want to start mixing this easily with your whisk. We'll get a spoon here in just a little bit, but this will help you with the whisk, and it just starts to getting that shortening cut up, the sugar and the salt blended. Now remember, you're going to have goopy hands, and yes, I do wear rings all the time. And if I happen to get, and that's why I have an apron, if I happen to get dough into my rings, I just get an old toothbrush and just scrub it out. It comes out really easy. Now the shortening lumps are getting a lot less now. Now the more flour you add and the more you mix, the better the lumps are going to go away. And that's what you're wanting to do. And it's not going to hurt if you stir for a little while. Now don't stop this and go off and tend to something unless it's an emergency or something, because you do have yeast in here and yeast starts rising. So you want to gently work with this dough, not to leave it and go off and watch TV or something. You don't want to do that because you have got your dough rising already. That yeast is what makes it poof. Okay, now that was 2 cups of flour. Now we're going to add some more, and I don't know if you can see it very well, but the lumps are almost all gone. They're getting mixed in with the flour. Now I'm going to add 1 more cup. That will be 3 cups. We will add more until it's ready, and you will see when it's ready. Okay, that is 3 cups. As I was growing up, I absolutely loved sitting and watching people cook and make things and roll out dough, and it was just the most wonderful thing, the peacefulness of it. That's what's amazing. Now this is what came out of the sifter from what I measured, so we're going to put this in also. So clean hands, always clean hands, and if you have long hair, you want to put it back. I do have long hair, and I have had it fall in the food, so no more. We will keep it pulled back and the apron on. Now we're going to stir this up, and we're going to mix this, and all of a sudden the shortening, the sugar, and the salt is all blending together. It is beautiful. It's not into a dough ball yet, but it will be. Right now, we're using the whisk to mix it. Then we'll go to the big spoon to do more stirring, but this is mixing the shortening and the sugar and the salt. Okay, now we're starting to get a little dough starting. It's not a dough ball, but that's when you want to change to a spoon, because the more flour that you add, the more it's going to get stuck into the whisk. So we are going to change to a spoon, and we will be right back. Thank you. Okay, now we are back, and we are going to go into the spoon. Now, one thing I love to do, as you've seen in my other videos, is I love to have a little bucket of hot soapy water with a little bit of bleach. And whenever you have something you're not using anymore, you just dump in there, and it's almost washed by the time you get through cooking. So, okay, now we're getting our nice big spoon, and we are going to stir the sides. And we are going to start adding flour. Now, the first amount that we started out with was 3 cups, and it's very, very runny. So now we're going to start adding more flour, just a little bit at a time until we make that ball. So I am going to get 1 more cup, but I may not use all of it. And I will show you how the ball will look when we get there. Now this will be an extra cup, but I'm only going to put maybe half of it. And remember, when you're cooking, it gets a little messy, but it's okay. That's why we have an apron on. So I love it. And if your counter gets a little messy, it'll clean up. Okay, now I put about half of that cup in here. Now we may need to use it all. I'm not sure. Now, in certain weather, in cold weather, in humid weather, can be dry, it will be a little bit different amounts of flour. Now this is starting to get to be what you want, but it's not there at all. So let's go ahead and add the full cup, which would make 4. And yes, you could go ahead and add all of the cups of flour in, but you might not have a good mix. It might not mix up good if you don't stir it as you go along. Now remember, you mash it gently. And I have had times to where I had lumps in the flour that I had to throw away, and I was so glad I sifted. All right. Now this is getting a little bit better. It's not the ball that we want yet. We are getting close, but it's not there yet. So let's try 1 more cup of flour. That would make 5 in all, but I may not use the whole cup. We'll see how much I need. So that's about level. Put it in the sifter. As you can tell, this sifter is ancient. I have no idea. I don't have any idea. It's one of the older brands, a Bromwell's, I've been told. And it says on here, I don't know which mother, grandmother, or wherever it came from. But it is old and I love it. I would not give it up. I love that old sifter. And yes, you can buy sifters in the stores, and I do like them. They are wonderful. Wonderful sifters. But you do need a sifter, so don't forget to get the sifters for your supplies. All right, do you know this is turning into the ball? This is what we want. Now, if I can show you a little bit, it's showing kind of a dry, messy looking ball right now, but that's what we're wanting. So it was 5 in all this time. I think other times it might have been 4.5, something like that. Clean hands. We're going to wipe this off. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to knead this ball. We're going to knead the dough into a ball. Getting all of that dough off if we possibly can. And it doesn't hurt if you don't get it all off. We'll clean it off in a little bit. Now you're going to take your fingers, and for those who have not made bread before, you have kind of a cup. Have your fingers curved like this, and what you do is you reach underneath that ball and you pull it and mash towards you. Turn the bowl and turn it before you. That's called kneading. Now I'm going to take my hands and reach down in, and I'm going to have to add flour as I go because it's getting kind of sticky. So it is going to need some more flour, but maybe not much. So I'm going to put a little in the sifter, and we're just going to kind of shake it around there. Now we're turning this into, see, curved. We're going to push, turn the bowl, mash down. Okay, curved fingers, curved like this. And yes, your fingers get messy, but it's okay. It's fun to play in the food. That's another reason why I love making bread, is because you get to play in it. Okay, fingers curved. And what you're doing is you're reaching under, pulling it toward you. Reach it under, and see it's getting a little sticky, so we'll add more flour to it. Now, some kinds of bread, it does hurt to have too much flour. Sometimes the biscuits get a little bit dry, and it's because you might accidentally have a little bit too much flour. But bread dough like this, I haven't ever seemingly had too much flour. Now remember, you lift, reach under, pull that ball towards you. Okay, we're going to keep going with the flour until we make a beautiful ball. And as you can tell, I'm making a mess on the table, but it doesn't hurt. Okay, now once you get used to this process, you can kind of move a little bit fast. You have curved fingers, you reach under the ball, pull it towards you, and kind of push down. Then it's called kneading, K-N-E-A-D-I-N-G. Okay, we're going to get a little more flour because I'm getting a little stickier. What you're doing is you're turning it into a ball that you can work with. Now, some bread recipes will have you let the dough rise and poof down, rise several times. But this one you don't. This one you turn it into a ball, and in a minute we'll roll it out on the pastry cloth. Okay, a little bit more flour. Don't worry about making a mess, it is cleanable. Okay, fingers curved, pull towards you. Pull towards you. My mother was first taught how to make homemade bread, and we will do that in another video. There is the white bread you can make, and there is the wheat bread, the honey wheat bread. And we will have videos of those. Now, in the 1940s, before I was born, my mom and dad lived in California, and my dad was a Navy officer. And he was on a lot of the ships and things like this during the World War II. Very scary. But my mom and dad had a little apartment, little tiny apartment, and there was like a row of apartments. And down the row, maybe a few doors down, see what I'm doing is pulling towards. Down a few doors down was a little elderly Hungarian woman, I think my mother said. And every week, maybe every 2 or 3 days, she would make homemade bread. And my mother loved cooking. And she finally went down there and she asked that little elderly lady if she could teach her how to make homemade bread, and she did. And so that's what we're going to do one of these days in one of our videos. We're going to make some homemade bread. And right now, it's the same process almost, to where you are kneading the dough and you're rolling it and pushing it down. Now, in the homemade bread recipes, you have to knead a lot longer. In the honey wheat recipe that I have to knead this ball similar to this for about 20 to 30 minutes solid nonstop. What that's doing is it's making all of that work together. It's called gluten. Now this recipe is a little bit different. You don't have to knead it for that length of time. What we're doing is kneading it, getting it ready to roll out. Now I want to pick this up and I want to show you what the ball looks like now. That is what we've been working towards. We've had water, we've had yeast, we have had sugar, we've had shortening, and this is what we're working toward, is a beautiful little ball of dough. Now, we are going to turn it into cinnamon rolls. So we will get back with you, and we'll have the pastry cloth out and ready to go, and you can see the next step. Thank you. We are back. I have everything set up now to roll the dough out. I have the pastry cloth, and yes, you can buy this on the internet. I have a rolling pin, and yes, at the time you buy your pastry cloth, you can also get a cover that helps to keep the dough from sticking. And then I have our dough in a good cooking pan. So now we're going to take the dough and we're going to roll it out into this pastry cloth. Now this pastry cloth, I sprinkled it with flour. Be sure and don't put the dough on just plain cloth. I sprinkled it with flour, and then you hand rub the flour in, and it keeps the dough from sticking to the pastry cloth. See? It's not going to stick. Now we are going to roll this dough out to 14 inches by 14 inches. I have a cooking ruler, plastic, easy to wash up, stays in my kitchen. Kids don't take it off, I hope. And I measure with my cooking ruler the dough so we get the perfect size. If you get the dough too thin, it won't rise as well. If you get it too thick, it'll be just gunky. So now we're going to take this, we're going to roll this into the flour on this cloth right here. Now we're going to roll this dough out to 14 inches, and you want it pretty much square. We'll kind of work with it and see, and we'll measure it in just a little bit to see if we're getting it done correctly. There have been times where I thought it was correct, but I measured and it was too big. So then it wouldn't have worked as well. So you can fix that, and I'll show you how to fix it. Now this right here looks close, but let's measure it and see. Now rulers are 12 inches, so then you move the roller over. So you want 14 inches. Here is 12. I'm going to put my finger there, and then I'm going to measure, and that's exactly it. So let's check on this side. Okay, we're going to go 14 inches. This is the first time it's ever been just right, I think. And that's exactly it. That's the first time. So don't worry if you don't get it just right. Measure. Now if you get it a little bit too big, you kind of pat it in like that. And then on the sides, if it's too long this way, then you kind of pat it back to the right size. Okay, so we've got a nice, pretty well square with little curved edges. Now, while we took a break, I melted 1 stick of butter. Now what I'm going to do is pour this on the dough carefully. Take a brush, your cooking brush, and kind of brush it to the very, very edges. Kind of take your time. You don't have to go too fast. One thing I love about cooking is that it's soothing and it's peaceful, and you can take your time. Now, I have been a working mother to where you work all day, you come home and everybody's starving, and they're not in very good moods because everybody's tired. And I do understand. So sometimes on work days, you have to have quick meals, and you just want to sit down because you're worn out. So take these kind of projects like we're doing today on a day, on a Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon or some evening when you're rested and you have a little bit of time to enjoy. Okay, now let's make sure we get it all the way to the edges. Now we're going to take this butter, and this is a nice huge pan. Now yes, you can use a cookie sheet, but try to get a fairly good quality cookie sheet, because just the other day, without realizing it, I had 2 different kinds of cookie sheets. One was not good quality and the other one was. And 1 whole pan of cinnamon rolls burnt. Made me sick. So be careful with your cookie pans. You need to get the best as far as quality as you can. I know things are expensive, so just go carefully. Now this pan I did get recently, and it is a nice, thick, heavy pan, and it cooks beautifully. Now what we're doing is we're painting butter on the sides as well as the whole bottom. This is going to make the cinnamon rolls taste delicious, as well as not stick and just be wonderful, be yummy. Now this is ready to go. Now this is ready to go, so we'll put this up. Now normally I have cinnamon sugar already mixed up in a little Ziploc carrier, but I want to mix it for you today so you can see how to mix it up. This is about 1 cup of sugar, and no, you won't be using all of it, but it's a good way to start with measurements. 1 cup of white grain sugar. We are going to take cinnamon, and I buy in bulk because I use so much. So we are going to pour maybe, I don't know, maybe 1/4 of a cup. We'll just kind of play with it and see. Maybe an 1/8 of a cup, possibly. We're going to pour that in there, and we are going to stir it until it gets to a real pretty brown, kind of a light colored brown. And as you can see, it's all streaky, so we are going to keep stirring it, mixing it all up. This way you get a chance to see how to mix your cinnamon sugar. Now this is the same cinnamon sugar that you would mix for toast for morning breakfasts, and you can butter your toast, sprinkle this on, and put it under the broiler. Oh wow, you have delicious cinnamon toast. But since you are making your cinnamon rolls, you're going to have cinnamon rolls for breakfast or lunch or supper, anytime. Delicious. Now you see it's starting to get, the streaks are gone. There's a little bit of white left, so we keep stirring until all the white is gone. And I think that's just about it. There's a little white lump. Now do you see about the color? It's beautiful golden color. Now we're going to sprinkle this. Now take a nice size spoon. Now this pastry cloth is going to have cinnamon sugar around the edges and on the cloth. So you will want to wash this pastry cloth before you make biscuits or regular bread, hot rolls or something. So don't use your cinnamon sugar pastry cloth when you're making bread or biscuits, because they will be strange. But you can shake the flour mixture off the sugar whenever you're over the trash can or outside, and then put it in your washer and wash it along with your apron. Now we're going to get to the edges like this, and you can see it's mixing in with the butter, and it looks wonderful. In a minute, when these are cooking in the oven, oh, I wish you could be here to smell them, but I want you to write me and let me know how yours turn out. Or if you have any questions, I would love to answer you, and I would love to help you. I have many of my beautiful grandchildren watching, so hello to all my grandkids. And on the end of this video, I'm going to have some special pictures of a very wonderful viewer that I have, and her mother sent me pictures of her watching my video, and I can't wait to show you those. Now that's about all we have left. I'll tell you more about the pictures in a minute. Now we're going to put that right there. Now what we're going to do, of course, always clean hands, we're going to start rolling. We're going to roll this dough. And this is so much fun to play in it. We're going to roll and roll and roll. And you know, I know many of you have made cinnamon rolls in your life. You have done all wonderful kinds of cooking. But for those that have never made these type of things, it's so much fun. And each recipe, if you've already made cinnamon rolls, you might want to try this recipe to see what you like of it. And if you've never made cinnamon rolls, this is going to be delicious. After they come out of the oven, we're going to pour a glaze over each cinnamon roll. And I wish I was able to give you some tastes of those, but you will have to make some and let me know how they work out. Okay, now you see I tucked the end under. Now this is a little fatter in the middle, so I'm going to take the sides and scrunch them in. Try to make them about the same width as this middle right there. And I know it won't be quite the same, but you make it kind of close. Kind of take it, kind of play with it. It's fun. It is so much fun to cook. Okay, now we're going to get our ruler again. Here we go. And I'm going to get a very sharp knife. I have tried so many different ways of cutting this cinnamon roll dough. And I have found out, I've tried to saw it, and I have found out a sharp, very sharp, one-time mash down is the best. And then it keeps that curl, that roll up like you want. Now I'm going to put the ruler on the dough and just lay it across the top. And every 1 inch I'm going to make a little mark. There's a line. There's a line. We're going to go all the way down and make a line, and then we'll move our ruler and we'll cut our cinnamon rolls. And I know that there are people that have been to chef school that do so beautiful work. But for those that don't have an opportunity, maybe you'll still get to have fun making some of these beautiful recipes. Now there was a little bit left over, so I'm going to leave that one end kind of thicker a little bit. We'll work with it. Now I have my lines all across. I'm going to take and make one clean push. Okay, there's a cut. There's a cut all the way down. Okay. We're going to cut all the way across. Oh, these are going to be beautiful. It is so much fun to cook. I just love it. Now, at the same time that you're doing this with your dough, and you're rolling it out and putting the butter and the cinnamon and the sugar and all that stuff together, you need your oven started heating to 375. 375. Okay, here we go. Now one more cut. Okay, now we're going to put that up. Now we're going to take these, and let me show you what it looks like. Now they are going to start opening. So you try to just kind of sit them there, and we're going to give them room in between each roll. Right there. We're going to give them some space to grow. Okay. Now, since the ends are a little bit smaller, I'm going to start with this end. I'm going to put it down here just for fun. Okay, now we're going to start and see they have a beautiful roll. Now for somebody that loves pecans, and I do, but if you love pecans, you can chop them real fine and sprinkle them on top of the cinnamon sugar. Oh goodness, that'd be delicious. I just have not had the chance to do it because these have been so delicious. But I will make some with the pecans, and I have before. And they are delicious. Okay, here we go. Do you see these rolls are coming? Now they are going to start, and you kind of scrunch them and make them a little round. Now they are going to fall apart, which is okay. That's what they're supposed to do. They're going to start spreading out. Here we go. Now if you're going to use 2 cookie sheets, this is more of a baker's pan, but if you're going to use 2 cookie sheets, that will work fine. Just make sure they're a good quality and the bottom thick. But this recipe will make 2 cookie sheets or 1 big pan like this. This is the equivalent to 2 cookie sheets pretty much. Okay, you see how they're coming together? They're just beautiful. Now some of these that are a little bit smaller, we can kind of squish them together a little bit better. These little end ones are pretty small. So we're going to take these last 2 and we are going to put them like this. Okay, now kind of scrunch them and make them in little circles. Now see, some of them are already trying to fall apart, which is okay. That's what you want them to do. They're already, that yeast is already rising. So we're going to try to give them space, try to see which ones need a little bit more room, kind of ooze them around a little bit. Ooze them a little bit, kind of make them into little circles. It's fun to play with it. I love to cook. Okay. Now, this is the finished product until you're ready to put it in the oven. Now, the next step is to let this start rising. They're going to rise up and they're going to spread out. Now, what you want to do is put them on top of your stove or somewhere that is a nice, warm, cozy area. And you're going to let them rise. It may be an hour, it may be around that amount of time. You just let them rise on their own. So what we're going to do is pause and let these rise. I'm going to put these on the stove top so that the warmth from the oven will help to make them rise quicker. And then we will get back with you. Thank you for being with us. See you in a minute. Welcome back. We have been letting the rolls rise. Now they're ready to go into the oven, and I want to show you a little bit closer. See how humongous they are. Now they will get some bigger in the oven. So we are going to put these into the oven at 375. Make sure the oven is heated before you put the rolls in. So we are going to put these in and we're going to let them cook for at least 10 minutes. Now your oven may be a little bit different, maybe a little bit hotter or a little bit less, so they may need a little bit less than 10 minutes or a little bit more than 10 minutes. And I can't wait to show you the final product. So we're going to put these into the oven now, 375 for around 10 minutes. Check them about 8 minutes just to make sure. Okay, we'll see you in just a minute. Welcome back, and the rolls are out of the oven. Now they're very, very hot. Some ovens will take maybe 10 minutes, some maybe 12 minutes. It depends on your oven. So you want to cook them until they're a light golden brown. Now, while they're sitting out and kind of cooling down, they do tend to get a little bit more goldeny. So we're going to let those cool, and while we are waiting for them to cool, we're going to make the glaze. Now, some people might call it a frosting, but this is more of a glaze because it's kind of a clear, and it's not like the white painted frosting. It's a pour-over glaze. Now, what I have done is I've used the sifter, and I have put 2 cups of powdered sugar. And I will show you the reason why we use a sifter is because powdered sugar naturally has little lumps in it. And if you use a sifter, you get all the lumps out. So I use 2 cups of powdered sugar. Okay, now we're going to pour in 2/3 of a cup of melted butter. Now I'll show you on the butter sticks. This is butter. On the butter sticks, it has 1/3, 1/4, 1/2. The whole stick is 1/2. So you need 2/3 of a cup of butter melted, and we're going to pour this in to the powdered sugar. Now we're going to put this glaze on the warm rolls. You don't have to put them on immediately right out of the oven, but we are going to put them on while they're pretty warm. Now we're going to put in 1/2 a cup of evaporated milk. Like this right here, 1/2 a cup of evaporated milk. And I was going to show you that powdered sugar comes in a bag like this, but since I use so much of it, I put it in a little vintage container, so it's easier for me to get out. So we're going to get our nice size spoon. We're going to start stirring the butter in. We are going to pour in the milk. It's evaporated milk, no water added, and it is 1/2 of a cup. We're going to pour that in. We're going to stir. We are going to put in 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And yes, I do like to use the Mexican vanilla. So we are going to use the delicious Mexican vanilla. And the brand that I have, you can ask me where to get it on the Gmail, Granny's Country Cookin @gmail.com. This is Baba Grand's vanilla. We are going to use 2 teaspoons. Okie dokie. There's 1. And here is 2. Pure vanilla is the only way to go. And Mexican vanilla is such a better, just wonderful flavor vanilla. It really makes your cooking a lot more fragrant, a lot more flavorful too. Okay, now we are going to mix this glaze up. Get all the little white lumps out of it. Now this is cooling down, but it's still really hot. I wouldn't want to touch the pan. Now you may have a little bit of glaze left over, but you always want to have a little bit more so that if you miss one or miss a little bit of it, then you can add some more to it. Okay, now what you're going to do is, it's a little kind of heavy bowl, so I'm going to take this spoonful, and if you can see, I'll move some of these things around where you can see. I forgot to tell you about the pinches of salt. I'm sorry. Now there is, I know this sounds weird, but there is 4 pinches of salt, and I'll show you how to do that. Now, you could measure this possibly, but I don't know if there's something small enough. But the vintage people, the old-timey frontier people, measured things by scoops or the size of eggs or pinches. Now this is a pinch. You pour a little bit in your hand. Don't dump it in here. You take your 2 fingers and you pinch. There's 1 pinch. There's 2 pinches. 3 pinches. And 4 pinches. Now don't get sidetracked and dump the rest of it in the bowl. I have done that before. Okay, we're going to put the rest back into the salt container. And now we will stir this up really, really good. And yes, the salt does make a difference. It takes away the icky sweet. It kind of makes the sweet blend a little better to have a little bit of salt. Okay, we're going to mix this. Now we're going to pretty much take the spoon and pour, because it is a very runny liquid, and that's what you want. We're going to pour a glaze over each roll, and they're going to kind of sit in the glaze. You want to get the roll totally covered up, all the areas covered around the sides, and it also keeps the cinnamon rolls from getting dried out. Oh, this is going to be absolutely delicious. I wish you could be here to smell this. Oh my goodness. This is magnificent. My husband and I can't wait to get some of these hot rolls with some fresh coffee, fresh ground coffee in just a minute. Beautiful cinnamon rolls. And I'm not sure if you can tell with the video, but they have slowly been getting a little bit browner as they're cooling. They're kind of finishing their cooking, I guess you could say. I have had that happen with cookies also. Cookies out of the oven, well, if you leave them on the pan for a little while, they'll tend to get darker. Alright, we are pouring this in here and around all the edges. And the reason why I don't use just a regular cookie sheet is almost this reason too. But you want the little side of the pan, the little sides, the little side walls, so that it is catching the cinnamon rolls and not letting them go too thinning out. It's holding them up, kind of holding them together. Now I'm going to finish these, and in a minute we will take one of these rolls and cut it and take a bite out of it and see what it looks like. Okay, let's get this roll really good. I'm going to try to hurry a little bit so we can catch them while they're nice and warm. This is really, really going to be delicious. Now, something I want to show you here in just a few minutes is that when these cinnamon rolls are cooled down and almost cold, you can take each one and you can put it in a Ziploc baggie and put it in the freezer. That way you can have a fresh cinnamon roll every morning for a few days, depending on how many people have and eat them. Isn't this looking delicious? We've got a few more rolls to go to put this glaze on. Now when these cool down, they're going to be really, really shiny. And I will also take a closer up picture so you can see for the end of the video. Absolutely delicious. Look at a little bit. getting it pretty good. We've got 3 more to go. And then we will let them cool down a little bit more, and then we will put one on a plate and cut it and see how tender and delicious it really, really is. We're just about going to have barely enough of this glaze. It's really, really doing good. Now when you put them in a baggie, and I'll show you, you let them cool down, and then you have like a spatula, like a hamburger turner type, and you just slide them right up underneath it and slide it into a baggie, and it will be delicious. And the glaze is all gone, and we have just enough. Absolutely beautiful. Now I'm going to take a close-up picture of this for you, and we will be right back. Thank you. Our cinnamon rolls are completely finished. We have covered with glaze. They've cooled down. I have put into a plate and made a fresh cup of ground coffee. Absolutely delicious. The last thing I want to share with you is you can take a Ziploc baggie and place each cinnamon roll into a baggie and put them in the freezer. They freeze perfectly. Every morning or at your work, you just take it out of the freezer, pop it in the microwave, and it is absolutely delicious. So be sure and make your cinnamon rolls. Let me know how they turn out, and let me know if you like this recipe. I love this recipe. It's tender, juicy, and delicious. So thank you for watching the cinnamon rolls today, and I want you to be sure and not forget to subscribe to this channel. Also press the little like button, that helps a lot, and then push the little bell to be reminded of the next videos that are coming up. And I love every one of you. Also, there is a special little tribute at the end of this video to one of my special viewers, and you will be amazed. Her mother sent me pictures of her watching my video. Her name is Prissy Lynn, and you will not believe that she is a kitty cat. She loves to watch these videos. I was just absolutely flabbergasted. And be sure and notice her pretty little pictures at the end of this video, and I will have some more of Prissy Lynn one of these days too. So enjoy your cinnamon rolls. Don't forget to subscribe. Contact me at the comments down below, or Facebook, or on Instagram, and also in Gmail. It's granny'scountrycookin@gmail.com. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.